Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the September 17th, 2024 monthly meeting of the McMinnville Water and Light Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to do a roll call.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin.
Here.
Commissioner Tate.
Here.
Commissioner Tankersley.
Here.
Commissioner Gormley.
Here.
Commissioner Christensen is excused this evening.
Thank you so much. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review the consent agenda? And does anyone need to have anything pulled off the consent agenda, or would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move.
Second, whatever.
I have a motion from Commissioner Tankersley and a second from Commissioner Gormley to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. Next, have commissioners had an opportunity to review accounts payable and purchasing reports. And any questions or comments there?
No questions here.
No questions.
None.
Okay. Thank you. And then we will welcome Mr. Jeff Towery as the city manager for the city of McMinnville. This is a continuation of practice that was put in place by the two elected bodies, the City Council of McMinnville and the Water and Light Commission, where the two lead administrators, the general manager and the city manager, make quarterly reports to either body. And I think we've talked a little bit about these reports. As this is a new practice we've been doing kind of a broader generalization. And as we move forward, we're going to start focusing in on specific work that either body is undertaking and dive a little deeper. And with that, welcome, Mr. Towery.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. I don't usually spend much time on the title slide, but there's a nifty change here. The last time I was here, we still had the fire department logo up here, and we don't have that anymore since we've annexed to the fire district, but we've added a municipal airport logo. So maintain some symmetry and some balance with our with our branding.
Very nice, very nice.
So got a few updates for you tonight. The city has completed the purchase and sale agreement for the property off Colvin Court right outside the wastewater treatment plant. That will become the site for a future public works operations facility and perhaps a backup emergency operations center. We're in the process of working with our design engineers and putting together the capital stack to construct that facility, and looking forward to giving our streets and parks maintenance crew a much needed upgrade, as well as some ability to do a little bit more centralized fleet management. The council recently approved engineering service fees that go into effect October 1st. We've spent the last several months connecting with the development community and informing them of the upcoming changes. And of course, any plans that are already in the queue don't pay the new fees. They'll stick with the old fees that were in place when they started their development process. As you saw during our tour last week, we're continuing our work on the treatment process, and some of our improvements are already underway with respect to solids handling. And we're continuing our work on the 3rd Street improvement process. We're looking at a flexible street design alternative, and then finalizing 30% design. There's also a photo. We did some dye testing not too long ago, and that is the safe but sort of strikingly colored dye that was in the Yamhill River for a while as we were tracing the outfall from the treatment plant.
So Jeff, if I could interrupt you for a minute.
Sure.
The existing shops that the city's had from the beginning with the old sewer plant and that, if we're able to go ahead and develop our property that you showed us the other night, would that become surplus property, or is there plans to use that for some other thing?
There may be an interested nearby party who would like to see that added to their inventory. So we'll be happy to have that conversation as time moves forward.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jeff.
You bet.
And Jeff, another quick question. What is a flexible street design?
So it essentially means we're going to be looking at a curbless street design on Third Street, which will sort of change the way drainage works, but it'll also make it a little, it'll add some accessibility to the street. And when we close the street for community events, it'll create a little bit more flexibility in terms of how that street surface gets used.
Great, thank you.
You bet. So we completed a 2-year-long Parks, Recreation, and Open Space planning update earlier this summer. The council adopted the new PROS plan on June 25th of 2024 after a 2+ year community engagement and planning process. This updates our oldest facilities plan that was last done in 1999, I believe. And we are preparing to work on the Culture, Parks, and Recreation bond, potentially for the May 25 election, which would include a new rec center, library upgrade, senior center renovation, and a lot of park projects, including non-motorized boat access to the river, which is something that came out of the planning process this year. In addition, we'll be launching new systems development charges. Residential fees will increase, but smaller homes will pay less to ensure fairness and equity. The SDCs will also extend to commercial and industrial buildings, which recognizes the importance of parks for both residents and employees. We also just finished a new section of the BPA West Side Trail Path, and eventually those plans will connect to Tice Parks. The developer of Baker Creek North has been building and maintaining that path and will continue to do so for the next several years.
One comment on that.
Yes.
Now the Water and Light path. Water and Light owns that lot right away.
I believe so, yes.
So it's BPA is no longer the right of way.
Yeah, I think it might still be named.
Yeah,
that,
I know. I
yeah.
just-
A little update from Noel on community engagement and communication. We are bringing forward an organizational assessment on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There'll be a joint work session with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, the consultant team, and the City Council next week. The final report and recommendations will be posted later on this year. We've seen a lot of community engagement over the last several weeks, up about 32% across all social media platforms. We think that's primarily driven to the culture, parks, and recreation work that we've been doing and the aggressive outreach that we've done. We've got a lot more folks participating through iHeartMac.org. If you haven't logged in and created your own profile, feel free to do it. You can sign up for a free electronic city newsletter there if you haven't already done that. And we've seen a real spike in first-time unique visitors to the page. So happy about that, and indication that we're getting the word out and engaging a lot more folks in information. We've got a lot of fall author events coming at the public library, a wide variety of topics and selections, working in collaboration with Third Street Books, Wine Country Pride, and the Friends of the Library over the course of late next week into November. And the foundation is busy fundraising for new shelves, trying to make better use of some historic space and improve the media room and create a little bit more light in that space for library users. Also seeing expanded interest in our Library of Things. About every month, Library Director Berg will bring interesting things to the council meeting to show them off. I think last month she brought a cherry pitter, which she noted would not be available immediately because she had checked it out and was going to be pitting cherries in her own house. But interesting, you have fidget kits and metal detectors, yard games, which are checked out nearly in the entire summer, and have had a great engagement with the Yamhill Community Cares Organization grant that will be completed in the coming year. We're looking at some new electronic stuff, GoPros, digital cameras, and the like, to be able to add to the Library of Things. Before I open it up for more questions, there are a couple of things that aren't on the slideshow that I just wanted to give you an update on. We're continuing the recruitment to replace Chief Scales, who'll be retiring at the end of the year. We'll be conducting first round interviews of, I think, 7 or 8 candidates next week. Those will be done virtually. We'll shave the list down to no more than 4 finalists who we'll have in town for interviews and meet and greets on the 10th and the 11th of October. Our goal is to be able to name a successor on or about November 1st. And then the other thing I'll mention that is that we continue to work on selecting a developer to do the redevelopment project at the RB Rubber site. We are close to coming up with a smaller group. We got 8 proposals, which was about twice what we had hoped for. Generated some extra work for the committee to score those proposals, but we're planning to interview a number of firms and then do another cut down to 2 or 3 at the most that will be invited to town to do some community engagement and some design charrette work to start to imagine what that property might look like. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have tonight about anything that was on the presentation or anything else.
Thank you. Questions?
No, thanks.
Commissioner Gormley?
Jeff, thanks for being here tonight. I always appreciate what you've got to tell us.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ed.
thank you for the tour. the
Oh, it
other
was
night,
great,
and
wasn't it?
It was great, and
Yeah.
I appreciate your staff doing all the things they did.
They
to
were
do that,
happy to
water
be
and
able
light and
to
the
show off
city.
the facilities.
Yeah, it's a great thing to be able to do
Yeah,
as a citizen.
yeah, appreciate it. And like being able to get folks out to the pump station, which I think a lot of folks had not seen.
Yeah,
So
it's very, yeah.
it was tough to see outside because it was a little dark already. I thought it was a great event.
Yeah.
Missed that 10 million gallon tank.
No,
I have one question.
oh, sure.
The library was working on getting a collection of mobile hotspots. Is that part of the do you know, I know it's very specific, but do you know if that's part of the Library of Things grant or if that's something that's be more general in
I
circulation?
think probably more general in circulation. I'll double check with Jenny on that and can either update you directly or include it in the update next quarter. I also know that we were looking for some funding to continue that program because originally it was funded through some ARPA dollars. And I think we have answered that question. So we just don't have the details at the tip of my brain tonight.
Great, wonderful.
Great.
Thank you. And I've asked,
What we did, there's pizza over here.
Thank you.
and I've asked Jeff to stay as well for a while for the conversation around declaration of surplus property in case any questions come up that he might be able to answer. And I'm going to be moving that up in the order as well because we also know he needs to go home and pack to leave for the airport. So thank you very much. We now welcome Brent Keller for a report from Mason Bruce Gerard.
Thank you, Mayor. Update on 2024 stumpage sales. Of course, the 300 401 road sales been deferred by Boise Cascade until 2025. They made their first half payment in July. The second half payment will be due end of January. And 550 road number 3 is completely buttoned up in terms of the logging, but also the project work is now completed in terms of road work. Finishing cleanup of the roads and ditches and putting everything to rest and slashing piling the slash. We came out real good on the cutouts on these sales, which can be dicey in that older timber with lots of unknowns. And so I'm real pleased with the cutouts. The volume came in about 5-6% over the original estimate, and the final value of just over $2 million was over about 3% over the original estimated value. Some other projects we're working on right now, road brushing continues. They're picking away at that, and this is where a cutting machine goes down the roads and cuts encroaching brush and tree limbs that are growing into the roads. Is something we have to do pretty much constantly on a cycle throughout the watershed. They're working just on the Haskins side right now. Regeneration surveys have started. We generally do those the first part of fall after Labor Day, usually, where we're surveying recently planted units to determine if interplanting will be necessary in the upcoming planting season. Fire season is winding down. We're currently at level 1. Fire precaution level, we never were above level 2 this year. It was a real mellow
Right.
fire season in the Pacific Northwest. I know there was a lot of fires around Oregon, but things were pretty routine in our region, so that was good. But operators have had their fire equipment all season, and that road brushing machine also has a fire wagon that accompanies that operation. So, any questions?
Questions here?
No questions?
No,
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
All right,
Brad.
thanks a lot.
Thank you. And we're now going to staff reports and legal counsel, Sam Justice, will be presenting on some Oregon Government Ethics Commission updates.
The staff report in your packet, I don't really have anything else to add to it. I think the clerk will be arranging for trainings in the near future.
and these are in-person trainings.
Yes, they
Okay.
can be, or they can also be webinars.
Oh, and so it's a webinar is not something you would just do at your convenience. They actually schedule.
They
it.
schedule, they're
Okay,
actually
great.
live webinars.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So Sam, do we need to schedule through Trina to make all that happen?
I think yeah, you work with Trina. I think she's going to attempt to set up a group, like in-person class for the commission, but it can also be done through live webinars. So if you're not available for that group session, you can also do it individually.
Thank you.
By chance, would any of our staff participate in this just to kind of be watchdog?
Well, as
Training?
an example, I'm signed up for a live webinar on October
Okay.
20th. So some of our staff will be conducting the training.
Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. We're moving into new business. We do have a number of items. I already mentioned that I'm going to be moving declaration of surplus property up to our first. I'm also going to be moving the commission compensation policy to next month. It appears there may have been a violation of public meeting laws, and therefore any decision that would come to tonight could be challenged anyway. So we will bring that back next month after we have a opportunity to figure out next steps. And with that, we will go to the declaration of surplus property. And I'm not sure who wants to take this, probably you, sir.
Well, I can take it. So I've had discussions with the city attorney recently about kind of the status of the negotiations between Waterlight and the city as relates to the sale of the property from Waterlight to the city. I think as we last left it, the question would be price, and also whether there be included in the sale any type of reservation by Waterlight on the floodplain property, whether Waterlight would reserve some type of right to do a mitigation on that site. I spoke with the city attorney yesterday, and he's declining to offer that as a reservation. So I think my understanding is the city will be prepared to transact today on the property without that reservation. So at the price that we discussed in executive session, which is essentially at the midpoint between the two appraisals, Waterlight would also be reserving an easement for an existing water main. So we'd be reserving a 30-foot easement across the property for that main. And we'd be selling the property under the purchase and sale agreement that's been presented in executive session to the commission. We have made the changes that were suggested in our earlier executive session, the textual changes. But at this point, I think that's where we're at. If the commission wants to consider that, there is a resolution in the packet that would allow for that. If the commission is not prepared to proceed forward tonight and wants more negotiation, that also is something the commission can decide to do. So that's what I have.
All right, well, let's open up for conversation.
So the easement we're talking about, just to make sure everybody's clear what I'm proposing, is sort of if we need it, when we need it. And it's not an easement for a road or anything like that. It's an easement to use that wetland portion of the property for wetland mitigation if we need to do that offsite. And I can see where we may need to do that for the diversion of the new Willamette water system, for maybe, there may be something on the pipeline that comes along there that comes up. Pardon?
And this building. as
And
well.
there may be something in this building. So if, and there, and also there may be something on the new water treatment plant that we build to go with that we just don't know. And I'm particularly concerned about this because when we raised McGuire, we had to find wetland mitigation area, and we ended up paying somebody in Chehalem Valley a lot of money, and then put a lot of money into the project. So that's what I'm proposing, not that we tie it up. It would be tied up so that if we need to use it, we can. Sam, without going into all the detail, any major details, can I talk about what's being, the value that's being placed on that wetland area by both parties?
You're talking about out of the appraisals?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the commission at this point, at this point, we've talked about these issues. It's
Okay.
up to you. If you want to.
No, I just don't want to violate the executive session rules.
You might be interested in some things unrelated to the purchase and sale, related to your concern around wetland mitigation. If you're at all concerned about kind of continuing, you kind of take this as part one of your commentary. I could address some of those concerns from.
I mean, if you're running a meeting, so if you want to talk
Well,
about that now.
I'm hearing hesitance. I don't know what you're going to bring up that you're concerned about violating the executive session, but certainly on the wetland mitigation. I understand that concern and that's come up for Water and Light in the past. I think there's a way outside of the purchase and sale agreement to address that. However, I think the city has a number of other areas where we could, separate and apart from the purchase and sale, talk about a wetland mitigation agreement. If that was kind of an important part of moving this forward, that would free the city up to continue its work, and specifically wouldn't tie up this piece of property because I feel it would be foolish to eliminate the possibility of river access, and certainly in our internal conversations at the city, we would not want to limit that future potential. And this was kind of specifically why I asked Jeff to be here tonight, is if the wetland mitigation conversation came up again, because there are other parks and other places where we could have conversation.
Okay, so.
Yeah, let me just raise this. So I've had discussions with the city attorney. So I would say that I think it would probably be a violation of my relationship with the city attorney to enter into a discussion with the city manager without the city attorney here. So I would not particularly be comfortable having that discussion in this context without David here.
And that makes sense to me.
But I'm happy to have additional discussions.
I can, but Mr. City Manager, would you say that what I said is accurate?
Yeah, without putting the attorneys in a difficult position, I can have a conversation with John. Certainly, I would echo the mayor's sentiments that the city owns at least 4 other park properties with wetland mitigation opportunities, and I think we would be open to having a conversation about the ability to reserve the opportunity to figure out which place the wetlands mitigation made the most sense. And I'm comfortable taking that offline with Sam and David and John.
So, I mean, I think I can ask you a question. You brought him here for that, right?
That was the idea.
So are we talking about, I mean, I'm a little confused because I think you call it Wetlands Park down there in Dancer Park. The property it still is owned by Water and Light. The city came to us, and I think it was the sewer plant, but I'm not sure. Maybe Ed remembers. And the city had no other place to do it. And it was gonna cost them a lot of money. And our lawyer told us that we could not, in open session, that we could not just give it to the city or so we basically didn't sell it. We gave the city the right to use it forever for what we had paid for the property, which was substantially less than market value at the time. So the first thing I'm concerned about with this new idea is whether they really are appropriate for wetland mitigation. I realize I don't know this is either, but so there's that issue. The second issue, and so are these new parks that you've added since then, or?
No, so we have, so I'm not an expert in wetlands mitigation, but I've been around it a bunch over the course of my career. We did a lot of wetlands mitigation in Springfield as well as Eugene. And when I was at Lane County, we sort of worked through that as a metro area. We have wetlands, we have designated wetlands in Tice Woods, in Discovery Meadows, in Galen McBee Park, and in Joe Dancer Park. And I think the city owns and or controls outright all of those properties and can certainly make a decision to make those lands available for mitigation by either the city or another party that we come to an agreement with.
So I misspoke. When I said wetlands, I meant floodplain property. And I think it's an important distinction because I don't think you can just say, well, there's an existing wetland here. I think you have to create a new one.
You can expand or make improvements
Right, yeah,
even to
yeah.
existing wetlands.
Right,
So
right.
it really depends on the size, on the scope and the amount of mitigation that needs to occur.
Right, and so, and John, do you remember how many acres the floodplain property is?
Well, the usable is what? Above that is 21 acres, 19 acres, Sam?
I'm out.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's so basically you've got,
It's about roughly 5 acres.
yeah, it's probably somewhere in that range. You've got slope and everything.
And that's
there.
that, okay. So
Yeah.
So is the city willing to, as part of this transaction, to give us the right to use?
I'm not suggesting that. My intent is to move the purchase and sale agreement forward and to recognize that you've raised other concerns that I think we can be a good partner on. My intent is to get the purchase and sale agreement.
Okay, so
Completed.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Because I first thought, well, we'll just not, since the city was not gonna pay anything for it, we would just not sell it. We'd not transfer it to them if they're not willing to pay for it. But I'm okay with the price we talked about, but I'm not okay with just giving it away and hoping that it's something that we need. I don't think it's surplus if we don't have a right to get it.
I think we've already declared it as
No,
surplus property.
I
now.
didn't vote.
Oh, that's what.
That's what we're doing tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
So I don't think I don't think it's surplus. I don't think we're doing our job under either the ordinance that deals with us or our obligation to the citizens of McMinnville as who are our customers, that we'll end up with not being able to use something that we need later and it costs a bunch of money. And you can't, unless it's in the document now, you can't bind future councils, as I understand it.
That's accurate.
And
However,
Jeff can't bind future city managers.
that's accurate. However, what I heard from the commission, and again, I want to be conscientious here, not to step outside of discussions that were had in executive session. My understanding was that this was my understanding has been that this is a concern, and perhaps I'm wrong, and certainly commissioners correct me if I'm wrong, but I have understood the commission more or less ready to move forward and close this contract. And
Okay, so let me tell you, my understanding was at the last meeting in open session, so we're not talking about executive session. I suggested that we go back with an offer and include this language in it, And you suggested, and the commission agreed, that we'd be better partners if Sam talked to the city attorney, not that we would just go ahead. But so that's different than saying we're gonna ignore this problem.
I think that it wasn't ignoring the problem. I think the conversation was to say that this is something we'd like to explore, but not a position that the commission was taking.
No, Remy, I'm not saying that the commission decided this. I'm just saying that as we now reach the point where we have to decide it tonight, that I think we should reserve that right, since the city doesn't seem to be willing to give us a right to develop our wetland mitigation. We don't really know whether they have property that would be suitable. And I guess I realize we don't know this is property suitable either, but I think we should not move forward. I don't think we're doing our jobs if we do.
Understood. I understand your point. Commissioner Gormley, Commissioner Tate, Chair Tate, do you have anything you'd like to add at this time?
Well, this is complicated, seems complicated to me. A lot of things I don't know a lot about. I'm confused because at some point it seemed like there was a change in. Is there two different things, floodplain and wetlands? Like, are we talking about two
So
things?
I'm talking about the floodplain, and then in the floodplain area is what I'm talking about reserving the easement over. And
The floodplain area at the property, which
Down at the
is
river.
made of well,
well, no,
It's wetland?
no, that may or may not be wet, that may not be wet, or probably isn't wetlands now, but that we could use to create a wetland to do wetland mitigation.
and do we have any idea like how much that would even, you
We,
don't know if you could create any, you don't know how much it would
we don't know,
be
so,
if you could create.
yeah, so that's why instead of saying we're just gonna keep it in case we need it, I'm saying we should have an easement that gives us the right, if and when and to the extent that we need to do this, to use that as a wetland.
It doesn't, to me, that doesn't seem like an easement works because then you're saying to them, here, you can have the whole piece of property. There was discussion about developing some water access, and then 10 years from now, we say, we need to develop this. So whatever you have done in the process with the land you bought, we need to come in and do our thing. That doesn't seem like it makes sense.
To the extent that that what they've done isn't consistent with us developing a wetland mitigation. The wetland mitigation down here is consistent with them having a park right next to it. And so, I mean, I don't know what'll happen. I just do know that we may need it and they're not paying for it.
So what I said, was that incorrect? Like, if we don't include this, right, I mean, if there was an easement included, like if somehow we had the
Right.
easement
Yes.
included. And so they would be buying the entire parcel of
Yes,
property,
that's correct.
including the floodplain part.
Yes,
And then let's say a decade goes by and they built
Right.
the center and they do develop, they develop the land some more and they decide that they can develop some river access and they want to use that floodplain property that they bought. Then at the same time, we are doing work and figure out we need some wetland mitigation. What does that look like? Because
well, I mean, if they're talking about putting a trail down to the river or something, because it's pretty steep there, I don't think they're gonna put a boat lane. Then they would probably be wise to put it way at the other end, so that in the narrow part, so that if we have to expand our land that's next to it into that land as wetland mitigation, it probably wouldn't impact them. We're not saying we have to use the whole thing.
I think that's a fairly lofty claim. I mean, you're master planning the area.
No, they can do what they want. I'm just saying if they're not willing to take the risk, that's what I would think they should. We're not imposing a master plan.
No, but you're saying, well, this is the area where it could go and, I mean, to say that you're determining what the city, how the city may use the property, how the city would use the property, or expressing that it would be for future recreation, but how it would be specifically designed, would really be up to those whose job it is to
Certainly,
design
I
such things.
agree with that completely. It would just be their design would be subject to the ratepayers need to have this property if we need it. It's the same citizen group. In fact, it's the group I'm concerned about is probably a bigger citizen group because not everybody would use the boat ramp or would use the floodplain area down there. And I know they can't, as I understand it, the city can't do very much in the floodplain because you can't build in the floodplain in the city. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, you can't develop structures, trails and paths.
Trails and paths, yes, but so it's not like they're gonna put a boathouse down there or something, or a.
I think it just seems odd to me, like I would purchase a piece of property in its entirety. With an unknown time, there's no time and there's an unknown specifics of what might ever happen with that property, but I own it. I'm not, I understand everything you're saying and I mean, I understand what you're saying and I appreciate, your experience with needing to have wetland mitigation and what you've experienced in the past, because that's extremely helpful. I just feel like it just seems like an odd place to be today with all the conversations that we've had leading up to this, that we were gonna, we've been talking about selling this piece of property and now there's things that are making it more complicated and that don't make total future sense to me. What if the city, are you concerned about the city having potential?
Well, I mean, they're not willing to commit to it. That's what I heard Remy say that
Well, I heard her say she doesn't want it to be part of this agreement, but it could be a subsequent agreement.
No, I didn't hear her say that. I heard her say that that with the time comes, we can come talk to the city, right?
No, that's not what I
Oh, okay.
said. What I said was it's important for us to move the purchase and sale agreement forward. When we're talking about the public good, we have a lot of work that will need to be done if we're going to move this Parks Recreation Cultural Center forward, which is a benefit to every citizen of McMinnville. This discussion over holding back land that was in the original discussion at the end of the at the end of the negotiation, when the city has expressed a clear desire to have that land included for future parks planning, doesn't make sense to me. And you literally have the city at the table saying there are multiple other areas in the city where wetland mitigation could occur and that we're open to that conversation.
Okay. I don't want to get into an argument with you about what happened,
I'm
but
not arguing, I'm just
No,
telling you what
but
I
you-
said.
okay, never mind then. I want you to know I did not agree with your statement that this came up at the last minute. If the city didn't know about it, it was because you didn't tell. Because we talked about this.
We sent this back in the last round of negotiations.
But I didn't just bring it up at the last meeting.
It's the only time that we have brought this forward from a legal perspective to talk about whether or not we're going to have this land for this specific reason. My intent is to help us move the purchase and sale agreement forward.
And
So
that's
we
what
can do the
and
other
that's what
work.
I'm trying to do too. I'm trying to say we solve this by saying that if and when and to the extent we need it for this one limited purpose, we can use it, and then we just go ahead with the agreement. And that's why I dropped the idea of let's divide it off that we talked about quite a while ago. So So that's what I'm trying to do here. So you are not the only one trying to move this forward. I am too.
Excellent. Then we should be able to get there.
So what was I'm sorry, I got lost a little bit again. So did the city talk about the easement yet? Or has that been?
I
discussed with the
understood
city
Sam,
yet?
and Sam can't talk anymore, but I understood Sam to say that the city attorney, and then apparently the mayor and also the city manager, city attorney conveyed the idea that the city is not willing to give the easement.
Not willing to give the easement. Okay.
Is that correct?
I think it's ill-advised for the city to give this easement at the time. And I would love to hear from Commissioner Gormley. You've been quiet up till now, sir.
Disappointed that Sam has to be silent because I thought the direction was pretty clear last time that Sam would go talk to the city attorney, would get this thing worked out. And, as someone that kind of pled the case with multiple boards at Water and Light to protect the city's future in that, I'm disappointed where we're at. And Remy, why is it that the city doesn't want to accept what Tom is presenting? What reason do we have that isn't going to work?
Sure. First of all, if there's a general discomfort and people aren't going to utilize Jeff here as a resource, which is why I asked him to be here, and it feels restrictive to this conversation, then I'd like to thank you for availing yourself for these questions, and certainly appreciate you staying, but it feels as though there's a different that it's creating a friction in the conversation here, and the commission should be able to be referring to their legal counsel. So thank you for.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'd love to have the city man. I'm just curious, what happened that the city needs that Tom's suggestion?
That's a question Jeff can help
answer it.
Yeah, well, I guess commissioners, I'm hearing discontent. So let's pause for a second, and if there's a choice here between being able to ask the city manager questions and asking our legal counsel questions, what would you, as the commission, prefer to do?
I would like to ask and have Ed ask and the rest of you ask, if you want, the questions you have of Jeff before we send him away. And then we can talk to Sam.
Okay, great. Is that amenable to you, Commissioner, or new chair?
I'd like to have my question answered. I mean, what happened that, I mean, to help me understand why we're opposed to what Tom's suggesting. I mean, that's all I'm asking.
That land, as part of this overall parcel, can be utilized by the city for future parks and recreation, which is the entire discussion that we're having about this land. And having heard Tom's concern is why I came back with how we could address that concern, but not necessarily through this purchase and sale agreement so that we could move it forward. The concern that I understand is a potential future need for wetlands mitigation, which this property may or may not be able to serve. And to me, if you have an entity at the table that's saying, but we can serve that need in the future, and we don't even know if this piece of property that we're going back and forth over will serve that need, I don't see the same barrier. I see a partner sitting at the table that's saying, I hear that need. It doesn't work for us in this capacity, but we'd like to find a way to meet wetland mitigation needs for Water and Light and meet parks and recreation needs for the city of McMinnville.
So having been through the wetlands issue related to the property in the Chehalem Valley, we spent months and months trying to find something that it was kind of like a square object being fit into a round hole. I don't think you can say that because the city has 4 different resources that one of them might work. We may in the end, because of what somebody rules, have to find something very peculiar. And that's what happened to us with that Chehalem thing. We had lots of other properties, but we got stuck with paying that. And millions of dollars later, here we are. But again, I think so. I think my answer to my question is, your concern is water and light, what water and light wants would interfere with what the future needs the city might have.
My concern is that the city of McMinnville invests taxpayer dollars to develop a piece of land that's been purchased on behalf of the citizens. And there's an unanticipated need that comes up from water and light, and we literally put those dollars underwater. That is my concern.
Well, I'm very sad because I have for years and years thought this was an ideal thing, but you know, in the end, we sitting here as water and light commissioners have the duty to protect this entity the best. And I guess negotiations are breaking down. In the end, maybe this is not the best property for the city then.
Have you in
Because of
the past
what
not
we're requiring.
expressed, Commissioner, in the past, you've expressed the desire to also reserve this land for parks and recreation?
Absolutely.
So I'm confused at your perspective right now. Because how can we both reserve it for parks and recreation, but make it available to potentially flood in the future? And I'm also curious as to why you don't feel we can meet that need or that concern through continued conversation about other properties that could be mutually beneficial.
My experience with the Chehalem Valley property was that it was so unique that the federal government, I mean, what happens if we have something assigned to us that in the end, your 4 pieces of property don't meet us? What do we do then? You're sitting here tonight trying to convince us that those 4 pieces of property will resolve our issue. And I have no idea in the future what's going to happen. And that's what happened to us with the Chehalem property, that it took a long time to find the property to meet what the federal government was wanting, along with the state and all the different agencies we had to deal with.
Yes, but I'm not trying to convince you of anything. What I'm saying is that we have a huge unknown.
Exactly, and I agree.
Yeah, Commissioner?
So another reason this property is important to us is we have adjacent property and we may need a larger piece that would include this and the adjacent property, but you know, this just down there to be the wetland mitigation. And so that's why I think this is important. And Ed's right. I think it was the state that messed. We satisfied the feds, and then the Division of State Lands had another requirement, and we had to go look for it, and it cost us a lot of money.
Well, we had to every year do something different to it. Remember?
Yeah,
We spent
but
millions of dollars.
what they forced us to do didn't work. So, and it took us years to convince them it wasn't working. But that just shows why we're so sensitive to it. I'm only talking about the floodplain property where the city couldn't build anything, where the city is not paying anything for it. They're not none of the price that you're paying. So you're talking about wasting taxpayer dollars. I'm concerned we're going to waste ratepayer dollars at a much, much, much higher rate, because if you put some trails in there, that just pales in comparison to what this costs. Hopefully, we won't have to do any wetland mitigation, and you'll be able to do what you want. The city will, but if we do have to do it, I don't want to have said, well, this is surplus, we don't need it, and then it costs ratepayers a whole bunch of money and delays us a whole bunch of time and what we're going to have to do. One of the problems we had with raising the dam is we had to get it raised before we wouldn't have enough time to refill it with it down, and so that made it very hard for us to deal with the Division of State Lands on the wetland stuff. So I don't want to be in that box again, and it's not going to be me, just like it's not going to be you, it's not going to be Jeff on deciding these alternate properties that if we try to pin that down now, that's going to take a whole bunch of time. I think this is the quickest way for us to move forward with this for the city. And I would have liked to have a month ago, moved it forward on this basis, but it wasn't what you wanted.
Any questions for Jeff?
I guess I'm gonna ask about, this property was never on the radar when you had the committee put together, was it? It was only after some external pressure and maybe some stuff in the paper that, because I think, wasn't there some land planned around the Linfield area that this group, you had a committee put all this together, right, Jeff?
So I don't remember it quite that way, Ed. We did.
Help me here then.
We did evaluate a number of properties. We didn't initially evaluate this one.
Correct.
And as soon as John came to me and said, what about this property? We evaluated it. There wasn't any reason for us not to do it. We didn't realize it was considered to be available, quite frankly. So we were looking at properties that we expected to be available, but had no concerns about evaluating the property. Ultimately, it graded out pretty darn well.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just say, I'm hearing a couple of things tonight. I'm hearing both a what is needed and a how to do it. And I don't think there's a disagreement on the what is needed. I think the ability to preserve water and light's interest in having access to property to mitigate wetlands in the future is really important. I also think we're a little bit hung up on the details of the how to do it. And if I were talking to the city council about this sort of challenge, I would ask for us to have the opportunity to, at the staff and legal level, do some more work on how to get it done. So I don't have any fundamental disagreement with the what you're asking for, but I'm not convinced that a permanent conservation easement is the right tool to use. Does that make sense?
So Jeff, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
And am I correct that you're not talking about building anything other than trails down there and perhaps a concrete boat ramp?
We don't know for sure because we haven't master planned the property.
But in your mind now?
It's unlikely that we're going to see above ground structures
Okay.
in that area.
And would it? And the big concern is the access to the river, correct?
That's one of our stated concerns because that's already identified. In the
No, I understand that, but
But
it
may not be everything.
I didn't say everything, but a big concern is that, right? That's a major concern.
Sure.
So could we alleviate that concern by having the easement not go all the way to the skinny end of the property, to the I guess is the east end of the property, and leave the city. And what's the, John, do you know what the distance is on the along up there?
Well, what I was gonna say is, I think we need to probably think about this a little bit, because I don't think the distance is very long. Because remember, the property right here cuts through all of this, and so I think that the problem that we're gonna face, or the city is gonna face, is the fact that I think most of it's gonna be fairly steep.
Oh, it's very steep, yeah.
So I'm not sure it's gonna be a very good use for access. And so in reality, the better access is probably gonna be the piece that we own tied to the Wagaman property down here, not to the Miller property.
But I'm not willing to give that up because we need that's another, that's,
Correct.
I think of that as the main wetland mitigation area.
Right. And
But because it's right next to the
So
one
I
that's,
guess what I was getting at, I'm not sure you can even connect the two because of the steepness of the slope in there.
so, I mean, if I'm not prepared to vote it,
Okay.
to vote for it to be surplus unless we have that easement, but I am willing to have our staff and city staff look at if there's a way to make this work. So, so it's gonna involve waiting another month, but unless the rest of the commission wants to move ahead, and then I only have one vote.
So we need to overdraw maps. and-
Commissioner Gormley, would you like to see this come back, or would you like to take a vote on it this evening?
I really would like to, Madam Mayor, I'd love to see us, Jeff, stay engaged. We get this thing worked out. I mean, come on, this is too important piece of property, at least in my vision of things in the future, and it's so ideal that I'd love to have us work this out. I mean, Jeff appears, there's some comments he made that, the attorneys got their way of looking at stuff, but in the end, let's figure out how to make this happen and make it work for both of us. But you need to understand that we have this experience with mitigation issues that they're all over the board. Just like Jeff can't identify what he wants to do in the future either. So somewhere in the middle, we got to meet.
I do understand, commissioners, that you've had experiences here I simply haven't had, and that they are informing your position as they should. Chair Tate, would you like to bring this back next month and turn it back to staff, or?
Well, I support this going through as well, and I would not like to see a no vote tonight. So if it takes more work, it does. I did want to just say that it's my understanding that if we're meeting halfway on the price of the two appraisals that we had, then I think it's fair to say the city is paying something.
I'm sorry, I respectfully disagree.
Okay, can you help me
Yeah.
understand that?
The two numbers that we are meeting halfway on did not assign any value to this property. Neither one of them did.
I'm sorry, I thought
Neither
one of
appraisal.
them.
No,
I
one of
thought
them,
one of them
no,
did.
one,
My-
because remember, there's
My fault.
a difference between the floodplain, which neither appraisal, as I remember, assigned any value to, and what I'll call the uplands, or the area that isn't flat. That the city's appraiser said that's not worth anything either. Our appraiser said it was worth something. There were some different values, and so we're splitting that difference. But this part of the property, they're not paying anything for.
Okay, I appreciate, I just want to be sure.
No,
we're
it's a
clear
good
about
question.
that,
It's a good
so.
question.
I would like to see it get resolved. And so I guess it will have to come back at this point.
Great, so what I'm gonna do is ask Jeff to be excused so that we can re-engage with our legal counsel before we give any clear direction about what our next steps are. Has everybody had their questions of the city manager satisfied for this evening?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor.
I appreciate the opportunity to engage. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
very much.
staying.
And I
Right, thank you for your patience with that, Mr. Justice. So it does seem indeed that the commission would like you to go back to the city to find some resolution that can meet all of these needs, which includes these concerns related to wetland mitigation and concerns related to maintaining river access. That would be the city's concern, not the commission's, obviously. Is that what you understand as well?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to try to comply with the code of professional responsibility. That was, as I'm trying to not talk to a represented party, but that's what I was doing, is trying to do that. But yeah, so do you want, as a group, are you more interested in trying to establish some type of ongoing control right on that piece of on that property? Are you interested in establishing other parcels that would mitigate? Are you looking for something that reduces that parcel down to a smaller?
So I for one, am not, I don't think it's gonna solve anybody's problem for us to try to identify other properties that might want to, and I'd want to tie them up.
Mhm.
So I don't, given the mayor's reaction, I don't think that we're going to get anywhere with that. And I think it'll take time to try to, identify and evaluate. And this we know is, in potential wetland area. We know been an approved wetland mitigation thing right near it. And we have some property that's between that approved wetland mitigation area and this area. So I think we should focus here. If the city needs some kind of, if they decide it's important to them, which it sounds like it is, that they have some way down to the river there, then I would, I would seriously, I think I would ask you to look and see if you can figure out a way that appears to make sense to take a small portion off the end that's away from our other property and stop the easement, so that if they wanted stairs down or something like that, that they could do that. But I also like maybe you and the city attorney to go out there and look at it, because it's pretty steep. And sort of talk about whether that's even going to work.
So I think maybe the first step is we're not even sure how much property would even be useful for this. Because we don't know, I mean, that might be the first thing we do, is identify, is there 2 acres, 1 acre, 3 acres?
Sure.
We don't know.
Well, trying to move it forward expeditiously. We haven't had surveyors out there, just identified it as the floodplain. So,
But I think we can look at it and see fairly easily, just from the aerial photography, how much is actually really even there.
Yeah, and there's I think the appraisals, as I recall, had a map that showed
I think we
that
have
showed
that.
which was the floodplain, and you have contour maps.
I think those are county maps.
And
Those
your
are,
contour
yeah.
maps will show you what that is too.
Yeah.
Because, the way the property sits, it goes straight and then it just does this and it gets very narrow at the
Yeah.
far end.
And so that's what I'm
All
thinking.
steep right there.
It's steep all along, basically, right? So that's what I'm
I think there's
thinking.
one spot where you can get to the river, and that was actually done to do the boring for the water
Oh,
main
okay.
that's under the river there.
And
There's actually a road down there, and I think maybe
Oh.
that's what maybe Remy's thinking about, is that access point.
So John, that water line, does it impact the construction of a building at all? I mean, we can't build on top of it.
No, I know that they're gonna have to design around it.
Chair Tate?
So I just still trying to understand all this. So we don't know, we know that there's a large potential for future wetland
Mhm.
mitigation, it sounds like. We don't really know what we have potentially over here, right? And that's what you're talking about, like maybe you have to survey or maybe you have to figure something out. So am I hearing that needs to be done in order to define what an easement might be?
Well, I think that, wasn't it, it's the idea is to go back, to send an administrative staff back. I'm a little concerned that I understand that you want to follow policy direction. I'm sorry. I
No, it's
interrupted
fine,
you.
it's fine, I'm trying to learn.
But I'm also, the idea was, what I heard was, let's go back and see what you can work out with the city attorney that meets all those needs. And I think that I think the execution of that is the staff level execution. So, hey, we've got a concern here about this usable area. If the decision is internally to do some surveying to move that forward, it doesn't seem like policy level decision is a policy level decision is not typically whether or not we'd be doing surveying. It's we want a purchase and sale agreement that both parties can agree to. And we've recognized these concerns. Can you help us move towards resolution of those concerns with the other party?
So the first step in that, in my mind, would be, let's identify what we're talking about. I mean, maybe it's not as big as we think, or maybe it doesn't interfere with potentially, or it's off to one side. We don't know. And so I think that's step one, that as you're talking, the administrative group or, staff needs to figure that out. And then we can go back to the city and say, well, this is what we're talking about. I think that's what I'm hearing. Is that
That makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me.
okay?
And Commissioner Gormley, did you want to add?
Mayor, thank you. Just a little bit maybe off point, but we have Dancer Park sitting below all of this. Is there any other area that might amend itself to having a boat ramp access? I mean, I think at Kiwanis Park, we actually have an area down there that you can bring a boat into, like a rubber raft or something. But is there any other area at Dancer Park that might be converted into allowing a boat ramp, or whatever you want to do with potentially this problem, the properties Tom's talking about?
I mean, I don't know what the requirements for putting in a boat ramp are, and I don't know the elevations that follow the whole river line. I really couldn't even begin to answer that.
Sure, I understand, but yeah.
And that's another point. I understood Jeff to talk about the city's already going to put in a boat ramp, I assume, at the Kiwanis Park area, right? And he talked about that. That's their park plan, whether this happens or not.
I don't recall,
Yeah.
I don't think
but
there was.
it's not about a boat ramp. It's about future parks, whatever the specifics of that will be aren't determined at this point.
Okay.
So I really couldn't speak to
Okay.
what the exact use would be other than parks and recreation. Yes, Commissioner, formally.
So let me just ask you a question. In the, we'll say, the hierarchy of our project, what is the most important thing we want to do? And I'm going to guess it's build this structure with parking and accommodate. We want to build a box that's going to do all these wonderful things for us as a community. In the big picture, this little chunk of ground, is it 1%, 2%, 10%, or even 0.5%? I mean, are we squandering the whole upper property to build this beautiful facility over this thing? Is it in the end better to accommodate what Tom's asking and let us get our building built and accommodate our community? In the end.
I don't see that the only way is Tom's way. So that's why I would like staff to go back and have further conversation.
Well, I'm very concerned because, as Sam said here tonight, it sounded like loggerheads between the two attorneys and nothing got done. And Madam Mayor, as you well know, sometimes the mayor and the city manager need to have a hard conversation. So,
Commissioner Gormley, it does not sound like we're at loggerheads to me. We've all established that the shared goal is to move the purchase and sale agreement forward. We've given
but
direction,
we're not there yet, are we?
but we're not there this evening. We've given direction to staff.
It is a loggerhead, and also it's very sad, really.
But we're talking, we don't know what.
You're right, we don't know.
What we're talking about here.
Right.
We need to figure that out.
All right, well, I'm gonna, since we're not gonna move this to a vote this evening, I feel like we're starting to kind of go in circles on it. So do you have the direction you need?
I think so. Thank you very much. Madam
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you very much. We are now going to move to a public hearing to consider and act upon changes to electric rates. It is now 6:09 p.m. on September 17th, 2024. The time scheduled for a public hearing on electric rates and charges. As mayor, I'm the presiding officer and will conduct the hearing, impose reasonable time limits on participants, and receive documents and reports into the hearing record. At today's hearing, the commission expects to hear a staff report. During the staff report, I may recognize other members of the commission to ask questions of staff. I may also recognize interested parties to ask questions. Before stating your question, please state your name and address for the record. Because we are operating in a hybrid digital format on Zoom, I will now provide a brief overview. Any interested party that has joined the Zoom meeting is automatically set to be on mute and to have their video on display hidden. At the appropriate times during the meeting, I will ask those in attendance whether they'd like to speak. When this occurs, please select the raise hand option from your device. Once you've selected that, the staff person managing the meeting will know that you would like to comment and will call on you. I will give adequate time at these points during the meeting to ensure that we capture everyone that would like to ask a question or make a comment. If you're having difficulty using the raise hand feature, you may also send a chat directly to the person monitoring the chat. Please note your name and address and confirm that you wish to speak or ask a question or make a comment. If you're calling in via phone, please wait until I ask if there is anyone on the phone who would like to ask a question or make a comment. After the staff report, the commission will invite comments of interested parties. After comments by interested parties, the staff will be invited to make a final comment. And finally, I'll close the hearing and the commission will deliberate and make a final decision. To begin, I would turn over to Trina McManus, our utility rate analyst, to make the staff presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Trina McManus. I'm the utility rate analyst for McMinnville Water and Light, and I've worked for the utility for the last 14 years and have focused on rates and cost of service for the last 3 years. We're here this evening to hold a public hearing on changes to electric rates and charges. Mark Beauchamp of Utility Financial Solutions presented the results of the latest cost of service analysis in July of 2023. Mr. Beauchamp is the president of UFS and has over 30 years of experience in the utility environment. He has completed cost of service and rate studies for more than 200 municipal systems around the United States and has served as an expert witness in rate cases. Mark is recognized as a national expert in his field and often speaks at conferences and presents to industry organizations. Mr. Beauchamp presented a 2-year rate track in 2023 with a 2.75% overall increase in electric rates each year. Tonight, staff is asking the commission to consider the adjustments for year 2 of that rate design. It is staff's opinion, based on familiarity with MW&L's electric department's financial status, revenue requirements, and review of the Utility Financial Solutions Cost of Service Study, that the proposed 2.75% overall rate adjustments are based on system costs and electric rates necessary to provide adequate receipts for maintenance and operation of the system, maintenance of adequate reserves for contingencies, and contemplated additions, improvements, and extensions to the system. I'd also like to offer the information from the commission packet, which is pages 51 to 81, to be admitted as part of the record. Be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you so much. Questions?
No, thank you.
No questions. Commissioner Gormley, any
None here.
questions?
None here. Thank you.
No, I just read this out loud for all of us, but let me make sure. Are there any interested parties that would like to ask questions at this time? Are there any interested parties on Zoom or on the phone that would like to ask questions or make comments at this time?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional comments that you would like to make at this time?
The only other thing that I'd say is that generally we do the cost of service every 2 years to align with BPA's rate period. So coming up this next spring, we'll be launching a new cost of service study. We will probably be presenting a 3-year rate track because there are 3 years remaining on BPA's 20-year contract period. And so we'll be following suit with BPA and probably be presenting that 3-year rate track come next summer.
Thank you. Commissioner Tankersley?
Trina, but we will evaluate every year how we're doing, right? Like we're doing now.
Correct.
So it'll be sort of a projection, but the decision we made a year at a time.
The
Great,
official
thank you.
analysis will be done with a 3-year lookout period, but yes, we will analyze and review it each year of that 3-year period.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now close the hearing, a public hearing at 6:15 p.m. And I would like to, I'd first like to accept all the materials presented into the hearing record and then close the hearing at 6:15 p.m. And I'll open this up for deliberations. Commissioners?
You know, I think we should do it. We've looked at it carefully in previous parts of the hearing, and it seems to be what's necessary without creating too big of a shock on our customers.
I'm supportive of what the staff's position is. Thank you.
Yes, I'm supportive. Okay, thank you. Then in that case, we'd Would you like to read the resolution, please? Would you please read the resolution?
I'll read the resolution by title only. This is resolution number 2024-20, a resolution adopting electric rates, charges, and fees by the city of McMinnville, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
And do I have a second? Second. I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley and a second from Chair Tate. And I would ask the clerk to poll the commission, please.
Yes, Mayor Drapkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Aye.
Commissioner Gormley.
Aye.
Thank you. And the resolution is adopted unanimously. Thank you very much. We are now going to go back to Mr. Justice for discussion about the MEDP board.
So this is our annual consideration of the request from the McMinnville Economic Development Partnership for funding. This year, they're requesting $85,000 in funding under the grant agreement that is part of your materials. Also, I think in your materials is their application letter from Patty Herzog, Executive Director. I believe I don't know if there's any other supporting materials. I believe that's the only supporting materials. This is an annual decision the commission makes to continue funding. I can tell you that it is part of the Water and Light budget, so it is a budgeted item. We do it under a grant agreement because that is an exception to the public contracting laws, allows the commission to make grants for items or for services that it deems to be in the interest of the utility. And that's part of the finding you're making as part of the grant agreement that this agreement provides for utility health. That's one item. The second item is consideration for action to reappoint the general manager, Mr. Dietz, to the MDP Board of Directors. The MDP bylaws call for one of their directors to be appointed by the Water and Light Commission. Mr. Dietz has served on that in that position since, I believe, 2018, has been reappointed annually. You'll notice he's not participating in this discussion because as a board of directors of a not for profit, but not a 501c3, he would have a conflict of interest in recommending the grant monies or in other actions related to that organization. So those are two things for your consideration tonight. One is an action by resolution, that would be the grant agreement. The other is would be a motion acting whether you want to reappoint Mr. Dietz to the MEDP Board of Directors.
Thank you.
Sam, or Mayor, Patty is in the audience tonight and she does have some supporting documentation in the form of a slide deck. So she was going to do a short little presentation for the commission if you'd like.
Okay, so that would be next up.
All right.
My apologies, Ms. Herzog.
Welcome, Patty Herzog, Executive Director of McMinnville Economic Development Partnership.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Is this all right. Thank you again for the opportunity and thank you for your continued support of McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. This is fresh off the presses. We actually finished it today, and this is our first presentation of the annual report. It's rather long. I'm not going to go through every slide. So we're going to just click through these. Yeah, the magic touch.
Big fingers.
So I'll click through this. Our vision, mission and value statement here remains the same. The board hasn't updated this since last year, so it continues. I'll leave this to you to check through, but A little bit of bio information from our board members, and as you can see, quite a few of them have been on the board for a long time, and some staff info. Our annual budget, it's, as you know, our sustaining funding partners are McMinnville Water and Light, the City of McMinnville, and McMinnville Industrial Promotions. One thing to note on here is that the City of McMinnville provides office space and office support to MEDP. What you see there included in the total for the City of McMinnville includes 13,000 in-kind contribution. And I would say that's undervalued. It hasn't been updated in a number of years, and also includes IT support and other facilities. Our staff, we have 2 full-time, Heather Hadley Blank and myself. We also have had a full-time contractor for the 8212 grant. That's Craig Brockett, who served as our workforce development contractor. We had a part-time contractor to work on creating a database for our business community here in McMinnville. And then we've had 2 part-time and full-time McMinnville Works interns. Again, thank you to Water and Light for your continued support, along with the city and MIP. Our strategic initiatives remain the same: business retention and expansion, workforce development, business attraction, and innovation development. I'm going to click through, just so you'll be able to see those. One thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that the economic development support within our area has grown quite a bit. So you can see our 3 partners up at the top there, Water and Light, City, and MIP. Business Oregon offers several different state programs to our business community. And then we also have seen a growth in our regional support. So there's now a county economic development manager. SegCorp continues to provide support to their membership that's still in McMinnville. And then the Council of Governments also provides support for our business community. One thing to note that was special this year is the work that was done on the 8212 grant with the City of McMinnville. And this portion specifically has to do with determining a business database. So this tells you what we were trying to do is with the 8212 grant was really focusing on a trained workforce to support local business. And in order to do that, we need to come up with some data-driven decision making. And we didn't have a clear business database. Those membership lists were within the MEDP, the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Business Association, and also Visit McMinnville. Through this effort, we were able to create a database of businesses, and now you'll see some of that data included in here. This, for instance, is one of the new pieces of data that we've been able to put together based on those North American industry classifications. And it shows us now the distribution of the industry sectors within McMinnville. So quite a large healthcare and social assistance programs. And while manufacturing is 4.79%, I would mention that they do make a large impact, even though they are a small portion of the overall business method. Their economic impact is very large. Our business engagement this year, we've had contact and supported over 180 businesses, and we broke them up into our different strategic priority areas. So you can see that. And then wanted to make sure that you guys could see we've had 48 new business leads and how those break out. But I think one of the highlights on here is the 5.5 million in funding that McMinnville businesses have received. And that breakdown, federal grant assistance that was awarded to McMinnville businesses, as well as 1.12 million from the state and 100,000 the Yamhill County business grants that were recently announced. There's some examples of some of the business attraction business retention and expansion efforts and some of the tours that we've gone on. Some legislative tours that have happened and government outreach programs. Workforce development, again, was a key part of what we did. You can see the breakdown of employees per industry, so you can see that as you dig into the data a little bit more. The Works program was in its 11th year this year, so we've got 14 interns. I would mention that 50% of the interns that were in the program this year were offered full-time jobs with companies, which is pretty impressive. We had nearly 350 applicants to the program. So we still need to encourage our business community to grow the host company sites. And we had 241 engineering applications come through. These programs here, the hospitality hiring event and the internship program with the hospital, these two are specifically related to the 8212 grant with the city. Our business attraction continuing to focus on the 7 to 11 jobs per acre. And the MEDP board is very focused on companies that are participating in our community and engaging as a leader. Some new companies that have come to town. Chameleon Industries has moved in to the industrial park area. MIP has purchased a property on Colvin Court and is looking to develop that. And then MEDP is working with the city to support the airport master planning and innovation campus packs. So we're looking forward to that. Some of our available large industrial sites in the community. These are the 4 main areas that we can promote for state prospects. Again, some of those pictures of our tours, you'll see the Northwest Rubber site that the mayor has been working on and has been very successful with developers. Our innovation and entrepreneurship, we continue to work with our state and regional partners on this. The state has Centers of Innovation Excellence. I'd like to point out that Pendleton has a UAS program, and one of our McMinnville companies is involved in that. It's Phoenix Solutions. We are also one of the key planning partners in the Regional Innovation Hub. And then we are partnering with Linfield on the support of our Launch Lab and entrepreneurship program with them as well. This is, you can read through this later, but this is the Regional Innovation Hub details. And again, we were a key partner working with our regional economic development partner, SEDCOR, who's awarded that. Some other McMinnovators at work here. We had a really successful experience at the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network Awards. Chipotle Farms won for the growth stage, and Precision Analytical was a finalist in the Trailblazer. Solid Carbon finished up their high opportunity impact grant. And this year they were awarded funding from Portland Seed Fund. And then the Yamhill County grant, Pure Light Botanicals, a new startup, received a $25,000 grant. Again, we hold a monthly coffee club for startups. We've had pub talks and micro workshops. It's continuing to grow. It's a very active entrepreneurial community in McMinnville. And recently, Oregon was identified as one of the largest states for entrepreneurial development. And that's just in the last few weeks. Our events continue to grow. We've partnered with Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance. We've had quarterly business leader forums, and our annual awards and event is coming up on October 2nd. So, again, it takes lots of work behind the scenes and our partners around the table. And we invite our investor circle partners, which grew by 50% this year. Some general demographics here, so just to finish it out. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great
This is-
slideshow.
A great presentation. Is it possible to get copies of that Trina might be able to send to the board? Thank you.
Yes. It's in a PDF format. I wouldn't suggest getting the PowerPoints a little large for emailing, but yeah, we can get that too.
I love all the data that, I like that, kind of how that flowed with, getting money to do a project that would benefit us in this larger scale and now having that data available. And I'm excited to see how that'll continue to benefit us as we apply for more and more opportunities out in the world and just have more to put into those applications. So thank you so much. It's great. Thank you.
And thanks for your support.
Absolutely. Okay, so any discussion, or I would entertain a motion, these two resolutions
There's a resolution and a motion.
and a motion. Okay.
Excuse me for a sec.
Oh, please.
On the first issue, the funding, I'm on the board of MIP, one of the other partners in MEDP. MIP values the program and appreciates the city and Water and Light contributing. So do I have a conflict?
If you're asking me the question in the meeting, I would say declare a potential conflict and don't vote.
Okay, I have a potential conflict that I'm not.
I'll move for the adoption then.
Okay, so we'll do the motion first and the resolution second. So I have the motion would be to reappoint or support the reappointment of our general manager to the board of directors. So and you don't, are you recusing yourself
Yeah,
from
I
both
vote,
decisions?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
You need to do. Are we voting you into something?
So-
Assume you would. Continue. Sorry.
Okay, no. So Commissioner Gormley, was your motion to support the reappointment of the general manager to the board of MEDP?
Yes, it was. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Chair Tate. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I.
Aye.
And
Abstain.
the record showed Commissioner Tankersley did not participate or vote in that motion.
Thank you. And the motion passes passes with one abstention. And now, Mr. Justice, will you read the resolution?
Sure. Resolution number 2024-21, a resolution authorizing and approving a grant agreement with the MW&L Economic Development Partnership and the Oregon Nonprofit Corporation by the city of McMinnville, a municipal corporation of the state of Oregon, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission. That's resolution 2024-21.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to
So
adopt the
moved.
resolution as presented. Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley
Second.
and a second from Chair Tate. And I would ask the clerk to poll the commission.
Yes, Mayor Drafton,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate,
I.
Commissioner Tankersley is abstaining.
Abstain.
Okay, and Commissioner Gormley.
Aye.
Thank you. And the resolution is adopted unanimously. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I would ask Chad Hudson to join us to discuss our tree trimming contract.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, tonight, staff is seeking commission approval to award a 3-year contract for utility line clearance and tree trimming services. The pros contract does include a potential for 2 1-year contract extensions, so the total term could be up to 5 years. Those extensions would come back to the commission for approval. Water and Light's current tree trimming contract with Associated Harvest is set to expire at the end of October, the 31st to be exact. The tree trimming program, which we've talked about many times, is used to improve safety and system reliability by maintaining proper line clearances, and definitely helps out in power outages during winter storm events. To ensure continuity of the service, staff conducted a formal bid process. We advertise in the Daily Journal of Commerce, News Register, and on our website. We received 3 bids one from Associate Arborist, Ask One Tree Expert, and Davy Tree Surgery, which is more bids than we've gotten in the past. We conducted a public bid opening. The bid results are included in your packet. The parent low bidder for the 3-year term was Associate Arborist at $3,450,112. If you notice the yearly contract pricing in there, the first year is relatively smaller. That's due to a shorter term. The first year will go from November 1st to June 30th. We're going to try to align with our fiscal year. And so that's why the difference in those years. Pretty much contracts the same as what we've done prior. The only difference is we're looking to increase from one half crews to 2 full-time crews. And the main reason for this is wildfire mitigation increase, especially that would enable our crews to be able to go out and visit the rural areas prior to fire season. So that's the main reason that we're jumping that out. So I guess in conclusion, staff is seeking commission approval to award a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extension options for utility line clearance and tree trimming services to Associated Arborists for a 3-year contract price of $3,450,112 as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder per ORS 279B.055 regarding competitive seal bidding, pending a notice of intent to award being issued with no protests, and authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the contract.
Thank you. Any questions?
No questions here.
But does our staff go out and identify that areas need to be cut, or is that part of their service?
So I can talk a little bit about. So on the tree trimming side of things, we have the arborist who broke it into, it's in a cycle, like mentioned here. So every 3 years, everything gets cut in the city. So we do have some staff that go out and address some of the hazard trees. We also went out and we're asking for customers through our website and also sending out letters for them to respond if they see hazard trees out there, mostly up in the West Hills areas.
So we do the inspections rather than them?
Whether it's a hazard tree or not?
Yeah, it talks about.
No, they actually do the inspection.
They do an inspection. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. The yearly inspections that the Chad's report talks about.
Yeah, they go and do this inspection.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's a hazard.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, this is our engineering and operations director, James Burke, just for everyone out there.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the contract.
So moved. Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley and a second from Commissioner Tankersley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay, and the contract is approved unanimously.
Thank you
Perfect.
very much.
Thank you so much. And we'll welcome back Jamie Phillips to talk about BPA energy efficiency incentives.
Thank you. Good evening. Staff is seeking commission authorization to allocate $100,000 of revenue from the sale of clean fuel credits to fund the enhancements to BPA energy efficiency incentives. Consistent with the Northwest Power Act and the Northwest Power and Conservation Council's power plan, BPA pursues energy efficiency as a resource to serve electric load in the region. And as a customer of BPA, McMinnville Water and Light receives an allocation every 2 years of energy efficiency incentive funds from BPA.
to administer the program and pursue energy conservation. And as we've discussed in the past, McMinnville's been successful in administering that program, and we've seen the benefits of that, and we have been able to spend our entire allocation for the most recent, probably 4 rate periods. So we'll continue to do that, but in addition, recognizing energy efficiency as a resource that we can acquire, staff has discussed with the commission some element of utility self-funding to enhance certain BPA rebates. And while keeping in line with BPA's parameters in the implementation manual for the measures. We are, the goal is to achieve those greater kilowatt hour savings, which provide a valuable benefit to all of our customers by deferring our purchase of higher price tier 2 power, and keeping power purchase costs down, keeping electric rates down for as long as we can, or to the greatest extent we can. Staff's proposing to use a portion of the revenue from the sale of clean fuel credits as a means of utility self-funding to enhance certain energy efficiency rebates to our customers. The state of Oregon doesn't restrict how the revenue from clean fuel credits can be spent. It's up to the utility to determine the best use of those funds. Currently, McMinnville Water and Light has a little over $242,000 of revenue that we've realized from the sale of these credits over the past couple of years. We've used a portion already to fund our integrated resource plan, as well as some training for staff surrounding electric vehicle charging. And this is another way that we feel would benefit our ratepayers to invest these dollars. So at the July meeting, the staff discussed with the commission some ideas for potential use of funds and self-funding of energy efficiency initiatives. And the commission, we have a good conversation, and the commission's expressed an interest in offering some enhancements to certain rebates as maybe a limited time promotion to gauge interest and collect data and customer feedback. So staff evaluated potential opportunities for these enhancements and identified incentives for heat pumps and ductless heat pumps as a good opportunity for enhanced rebates. These measures are among most popular for our customers. They also offer the potential for some meaningful kilowatt hour savings, as well as they present a large disparity between the actual project cost and the rebate offered currently. So there's a need there to fill a gap. The projects receiving the additional incentives will still need to meet the same standards as the BPA in the BPA implementation manual. So that will remain consistent. And what staff is recommending is an additional enhancement to heat pump and ductless heat pump rebates listed here in the memo of $1,500. So that can really provide, a boost to customers in these rebates. The table here kind of demonstrates the existing BPA rebate, and you'll notice that for our income qualified customers, rebates are much higher. We would ensure that the total of all rebates would not exceed the project cost. And we plan to share this opportunity with our customers via several platforms, social media, our website, customer and contractor outreach to try to get some traffic and offer this for the period of 1 year to align with the BPA year. Our current EEI allocation, energy efficiency incentive funds, expire in September of 2025. So staff is recommending an initial allocation of $100,000 to fund these enhanced initiatives for the next year, beginning October 1st, 2024. Should the funds be exhausted before that year is up, staff will revisit with the commission whether it would like to commit further funds for these or other rebate enhancements. That way we can limit our risk exposure, we can manage the program closely and gauge that customer interest in response. So staff recommends approval of a resolution authorizing the allocation of $100,000 of revenue from the sale of clean fuel credits to fund the enhancement to BPA energy efficiency incentives program until these additional funds are exhausted or September 30th, 2025, whichever occurs sooner.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
No questions here.
No?
Great proposal. I'm happy to see it come back so quickly from our discussions in July and with all of the discussions around BPA and what's happening with the new contracts coming up. It's good that we do as many things as we can to get our citizens to be able to conserve as much as possible. So I'm very supportive. I hope you come back and ask us for more. I do too.
And I'm impressed that you figure out a way to do this, that we don't have a lot of administrative costs. We're just piggybacking on the BPA thing. I think that's really good. It makes these conservation dollars go farther. And I like the result for low income people. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you read the resolution, please?
Certainly. This is resolution number 2024-22, a resolution by the City of McMinnville acting by and through its Water and Light Commission, self-funding energy efficiency.
Thank you. And would the clerk please poll the commission?
Do we have a motion on that?
So
Oh, I'm sorry. The motion to approve the resolution. Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley.
Second.
And a second from Chair Tate. And would the clerk please poll the commission?
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Aye.
Commissioner Gormley.
aye.
And the resolution is adopted unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could just ask a quick question of Jamie and or John. Have we ever contacted the Energy Trust to see if there's any kind of partnership we can do with them with some of the federal money? Or I see a big grin on John's face. It's like they want nothing to do with this.
I don't know of any opportunities.
They would like to run our program and basically get administrative fees.
Naturally, okay.
Reduce our incentives.
Right, so I don't know of any opportunities that would be a greater benefit to our.
Okay.
here.
And Jamie, this might be a good thing to let NWPPA know about, to put in their bulletin.
Yeah.
Because I think your idea of
That's
piggybacking
actually-
on
that's- I
bond
like
is a
that
good,
idea.
Yeah.
We could have Julie do an article.
that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now go back to Mr. Justice to walk us through appointing a commission member to the General Manager Performance Review Committee and process.
So this is a time that we do this every year. Mr. Dietz has a review date of November 1. And in prior years, we've formed a committee. Most recently, Commissioners Gormley and Tate were appointed as a review committee. This evening, what I suggest that the commission do is appoint appoint a single member, frankly, with the requirements I think we've become more aware of for public meetings. I think it'll be easier to manage. I think you'll also be asked to work with our clerk to set a date out in the future, probably in early November, for a meeting of the commission specifically for the review of Mr. Deeds. That'll be partly an executive session, partly in an open session, depending on what's being discussed. The evaluation itself will be an executive session, discussion about compensation and anything broader dealing with agency goals, water and light goals is required to be an open session. So we'll split it that way.
So we would submit our review forms to you, right? Not
Right.
to the person doing it, because then we're communicating.
Well, if just for that reason, maybe, but also just because that's the way we've done it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll manage collection of the evaluations. I'll put that into kind of a form for the appointed commissioner to review with me. There may be some interaction with Mr. Dietz in that process, but we'll get through that initial process, put together a single evaluation that we'll bring back to the commission for its review in the public meeting.
Well, I was thinking Jody probably.
No, we did that to her once and she still remembers.
I was kidding anyway. I am going to be out of the country until October 19th.
That's probably fine.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so if that is not a problem,
Yeah,
then,
I anticipate getting the review evaluations out soon.
yeah,
But they don't usually come back immediately.
right. I am, yeah, I won't get mine done immediately either. But perhaps Commissioner Gormley has another idea. Are you?
I will
Okay.
gladly help any way I can, but probably after our October meeting, I'll be gone for, I'll be in Arizona for 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Okay,
I'll help you any way I can.
okay, all right.
So,
Well, I'd like to nominate Chair Tate.
all right, you beat me to it. Second.
All right, so we have a nomination and a second for Chair Tate to be the sole commissioner of the general manager performance review committee of one. And how would you like to do this?
Well, the motion is to appoint Chair Tate to be the commission member to compile information and give staff direction for the scheduling a special meeting and for the purposes of review of the general manager.
Kathy, you're okay with this?
That's what I seconded.
I'm okay with this.
Okay.
John looks a little frightened, but.
He shouldn't be. He's too many years we've done this with him.
Yeah,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Any general manager comments?
Just one, we've been working with the Water Caucus, so we've got a tentative date of October 29th for a tour from 11 to 4. So I'm requesting that the commission reserves that time for that tour. And we will be working on our tour schedule and our hockey points for that tour.
And John, I think you've already told us, but I don't remember what exactly is the Water Caucus.
The Water Caucus is a group of the legislature.
Oh, okay.
So I think it is Representative Helm and Representative Owens.
And would you like some of the commission there?
I would prefer all of the commission there if
Okay.
they could,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I think if everybody shows up, it'll be about 10 legislators or 12.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. So we don't know the number yet, but there will also be potentially staff there as well.
Yeah, and the governor's office had assigned, I can't remember what her position is. That
She was advised, natural resource advisor.
something
like that.
along the
You've met
lines
her
of that.
once.
So really having a lot of conversations about regional and state
Right.
water systems.
And what, that's all day?
No, 11 to 4,
Oh, okay.
And what date again?
October 29th.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioner comments?
Done here.
Just again, I was real impressed with what staff did with that $100,000. I think it really was well done.
Excellent. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review the financials and any
Yes,
comments
quick.
there? Any questions? All right, and with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:56 p.m.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing.
No executive session tonight?
No.
No